Okay, welcome to the CrossPoints podcast.
Yeah.
I am so excited to be here with my friend, Pastor Mark Traver. We are going to talk about all kinds of amazing things today, but we're just going to dive right into it.
Right in.
Right in.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so let's talk about having a global Christian perspective.
Pretty huge.
It's a big deal, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this with you particularly is because for the viewing audience out there, you all know that right now in October of 2020, we have a political election that's coming up that has been very divisive across the board in our country. People are taking sides. There's been the debate that just happened last night, the vice presidential debate. And what typically happens in seasons like this is that Christians get forced to be put into one of two perspectives. You're either a Democrat or you're a Republican. And I thought it would be good for us to kind of take that 30,000-foot view of being a Christian with your perspective of having a global perspective of, as being a missions pastor, you've traveled all over the world, and what that looks like for a Christian to have a global perspective.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to get your take on maybe your perspective about that idea of having a global perspective. What does that mean for you? How have you seen that played out in the lives of maybe some of our missionaries? And how have you seen that played out with people that live in other countries that aren't even Americans?
Yep.
So that's a big, broad conversation, but let's just dive in. And what's your first response to that?
Well, you know, we've been discussing this last year. We had a big roundtable with all of our missionaries because all at the same time we had elections going on in Bolivia.
Okay.
And so some of our missionaries that are there, and one of the spouses is Bolivian, the other one's an American, and they're very active and it's real serious because they are a communist country, and they have a dictator that is controlling. Well, they're not communists, but they have a guy that wants to be more controlling and be a dictator.
Sure.
And so their vote really matters, and they're suppressing the vote. And so he's talked about wanting to close all the churches down. So it's really serious. We have Curtis and Maylin Jones.
Okay.
As everybody knows, in Hong Kong, they've been protesting. China's taken over. China has now taken over Hong Kong.
Right.
And so the very question, what's going to happen with the church? So politics and the church are clashing. And so we've had the discussion, you know, how do missionaries respond?
Right.
What is our call? Are we supposed to be active in politics? Are we supposed to be active? But again, after we had that whole discussion, again, we were from probably 10 different countries, and we talked about what missions organizations do. Bottom line for us as Christians, we're about first the kingdom of God, right? That's where it starts.
Absolutely,
Politics are so important, but as the church and as missionaries in those countries, we're there to share hope about the kingdom of God.
Right.
And not take sides, but there are sides because it does affect us whether we can even have church and even be in the country.
And I think that's a great point. Like, politics does affect our religious standing and how we're able to operate as believers. So it is important, but maybe we could say it's not the most important thing.
Absolutely.
It's important, but it's not the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thinking about like Hong Kong, which we have missionaries in Hong Kong that have been there for probably 30 or 40 years.
Yes.
And so what are some of the difficulties that they've had? I'm just curious what your perspective is. I mean, let our audience kind of know. I mean, there have been riots on the streets from what I understand. So why don't you communicate a little bit about it?
Well, the church is really divided. You know, some of them are very active, saying we have to stand up as a church and fight the Chinese regime and speak out because they're going to lose their religious freedom. They're going to lose being able to be a church. Right. And there's others that are there saying, no, we're not about, we need to walk in peace. We need to walk in the values of what's going to happen if the Chinese government takes over. Then we will respect that, and we will continue being an underground church. And so there's a real...
So there's even conflict in the Church of Hong Kong
of whether you
about
should fight
which side
or
that
whether
you should
not.
Which would be almost like America. Are you a Republican or are you a Democrat,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And they probably, I would imagine that maybe even in China or in Hong Kong, that those on one side think the other side really aren't believers or they're not walking with God, and the other side feels the same way. Yeah.
And so
which is interesting. It's not, I mean, what we experience here in America is not unique it's happening all over.
Yep.
So yeah, to that point, go ahead.
And to a much greater degree, or
Okay.
with least greater consequences right now.
Yes, right. Okay.
So, because really in Hong Kong, churches might get shut down in a couple years. That's really a possibility. Bolivia, the same place where.
Right.
For us, churches aren't going to get shut down. There
Right.
may be different aspects of how churches are going to be, but it's not going to have the same consequences.
Right. So let's dive down a little bit deeper into what does it mean then for a Christian to have a global perspective? Maybe we could call it this, a global kingdom perspective. What for you, as you've traveled all over the world with all of these different countries, what does that mean for you?
For me, having a global perspective when it comes to politics or when it comes to the kingdom of God?
Well, let's start with the kingdom of God first, because I think that's where it has to start.
Well, I think there's also, for me, kind of what we're wrestling through even in our country is we hear a lot of stuff in the news, right? The news is feeding us. And so for many years, we've been talking about the wall in Mexico and what that means. And so we have a perspective and we have a conversation about illegal aliens.
Yeah.
We've also, in 2011, when we had the terrorist attack in Muslims' country, then we've had a big discussions on Muslims and Islam and what does that mean for our country. And there's definitely a fear factor. Right now, we've been talking the last couple of years on China and tariffs and the taxes and fear factor.
Yeah, it's a fear that China could become more powerful than America, and then are they going to control us? I mean, these are real issues that people have been talking about.
Back when I was a kid, it was Russia. Russia was the big country, right? And so we can walk as a country in fear of those, and we can say, oh, we don't like those people, or we get biases real quickly. Islamic people are all out to kill Christian people. Right. Or, people say things about Mexicans or Latin Americans that are coming across. And there's always a little bit of truth to what they're saying, but having a global perspective, God wants us to have a heart and a compassion for people.
Yeah, okay. Say that one more time, because, and the reason why I want you to say that is because even here in Kansas City and within our own church, I have heard comments disparaging Mexican people. Yep. I really have. Yep. We don't want those Mexicans in our backyard, pretty much is what I've heard. Yep. And it grieves my heart. What have we been what have we been teaching and training our church over the years when it comes to missions, that we love the whole world and yet we can't love our neighbors who are different than us?
And I really think it comes from how we're investing our minds and listening to things, and it shapes the words that come out of our mouth. Because I do really believe that a lot of Christians don't have a hatred towards people, but they have a bias because of the things that are going on.
So that you would say that there's like a fear, not a hatred.
Yep.
Okay.
But how it comes out, because we're walking in that fear, can seem like they have a hatred or a dislike for people groups. And some people have let it go down into their spirit enough where they don't even know it. Yeah. But they do fear, and they don't like other people groups because of what they have an understanding for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's so important.
Okay.
I think there's really important. Every country in the world has strict borders. And we've talked about borders in our country for a long time. But I want to tell you, we take from our church a trip every single year to Mexico. And I love taking people that have that question about borders. Because, again, you get there and you get to know the people. Yeah. You see the people that are on the border and that they're living in cardboard boxes with nothing. If I was there, I would want to be in this amazing country. Right? Yeah. And so you put a perspective having a heart for the people. Whether them coming to the country is a right or wrong thing, it's not for me to debate. It's not for politicians.
We're not talking about the legality of it. We're talking about having compassion.
Yes, but having a love for those people. And then when they're coming here, if we have illegals here, it's not mine to be tolerant. It's them for me to share the gospel to them, tell them that they have hope, not in America, not in President Trump or whoever's our next president, but it's having hope in Jesus. And that's, as us, we have to have that global perspective.
That's really good, because the immigration issues have been something that have been so divisive as well. And if we're not careful, it can become just a headline instead of really hearing the hearts of what people are, where they're at, where they're living, and how we interact with people that live around us every single day. And if we're not careful, that attitude of the world, or that attitude of whatever political persuasion you might have, would be like, well, they're illegals. I want them out of here. I don't want to have anything to do with them. They shouldn't be here. They're stealing our jobs and they're doing that. Well, that very well may be the case. But as believers in Jesus, we're to react differently. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
We're to love them, even if they irritate us, even if they're taking our jobs. We still love them. Right? Yeah.
And for me, It is a balance because I want legal aspects of people coming,
sure.
but I want immigration to come. I want as many people to come because the more people we have from other countries, there's so many countries that are still close to us,
right,
that we can't get into as missionaries.
Yeah.
And as we have them come here, we can share the gospel with them. That will go back to their families.
That's
because
good.
families, when you lead somebody, Lord, it spreds to their families.
So I'm putting you on the spot right now, Mark Traver, on some kind of political point. So you're saying you're kind of for a more of an open border, not an open border for illegals, but to say, hey, we want to allow immigration to be part of our U.S. policy because it enables us to rub shoulders with the world.
I absolutely think there needs to be illegal. There shouldn't be illegal people coming in the country.
Right, I understand.
But I would love for it to be a lot more open, a lot more easy for people to come into our country.
Yep. I think it helps the diversity of our nation as well, too.
That's what we're
and if
based
we
on.
as Christians get fearful about, oh my gosh, all these people are coming over and it's going to destroy our Christian country, then I'm like, well, then how weak are we as Christians?
Absolutely.
I mean, we should be the light. We should be leading people to the Lord. So, that's interesting.
And I think on the flip side, that's where we also want to go. We want to go to the most dangerous, closed places in the world. That's where the gospel is needed most.
Yes.
And that's having a global perspective, a Christian perspective, is that, oh, China is scary. Oh, we can't go there. Oh, Russia's scary. They're a big country. We don't, when the wall came down and the communism fell in Russia, our church was taking trips there immediately.
We were one of the first churches in Russia when the Iron Curtain came down, for sure.
We have missionaries that are in China.
Yep.
And they had to leave and they're not back in China right now.
Right.
And because of what's going on in China right now with COVID and because of America and all the terrorists, there's an animosity against Americans.
Yeah.
And I've been talking, they're stuck because of COVID.
Sure.
But they've been praying, they want to go back to China.
Right.
Because they have a global God perspective is, I want to put my life because they need Jesus.
Yeah.
And if nobody goes, how are they going to hear?
Well, that's what Paul said, right? How can they hear if no one goes and tells them?
Absolutely.
So we need to have a global kingdom perspective that says, and I think about the first country that comes to my mind is like North Korea, one of the most isolated, most opposed to Christian understanding and preaching and that kind of thing. Well, Christians should be praying, longing to be the first to go into that country whenever we have the opportunity.
Which there's a lot of people in church that are like, oh, they're the worst country in the world.
Right.
Trump should just bomb them off the face of the planet. Because, no, that's not God's perspective. God's perspective is that we need to find a way to get in there. We need to find a way to pray for them. Those that are sneaking out, they have families that are left
That's
there.
right.
How can we tell them there's a hope in Jesus and find a way to make that happen?
Yeah, the scripture said that God's not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to faith in him. And so the bomb is not the answer, right?
Absolutely.
He uses us. God didn't create us to be soldiers. He created us to be people that are fishers of men, so to speak. Yeah. So, well, I love having that kind of conversation because I think it's so important for us to realize that we're not just some little local church in Shawnee. We're not just some isolated church in a bubble, but we're called to break out of that bubble and to have a global kingdom perspective.
It's absolutely.
Really good. Really good. Okay. So, Mark, let me ask you this. I've got a couple questions for you. One would be, and I preached this several years ago, that there are missional Christians and there are missionaries. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does it mean to be missional, and what does it mean to be a missionary? And this is a point that I push that I got a lot of grief from the staff on, but it's an important point for me that I want us to kind of chat through. So let's talk about that.
Even for me.
Yes, even for you. You were pushing back on me as well.
Because I really believe that God has called people to go and share the gospel.
Absolutely.
And that's like being a missionary. But there is a difference between being a missionary and being missional. And so I understand the fine tooth of the word, but I definitely in my heart believe that God calls all of us to be sharing the gospel.
And I would wholeheartedly agree. Now, just to be clear, our conversation was, is everybody a missionary or are only some people missionaries? And this is an interesting distinction because, of course, we're going to say everyone should share the gospel, therefore everyone's a missionary. But if everyone's a missionary, then that means that they're no different than somebody that's serving overseas. And I think it's important to have that distinction that there are some people that live their whole lives to spread that. That's what their profession is, so to speak. speak. That's what they're called to do. So let's chat a little bit more about that. How would your missionaries, well, let's define kind of some of our missionaries. What would you say is their role through CrossPoints Church?
Well, how we define missionaries, those are going to a cross-cultural experience.
Okay.
And that can be right here in the country, right?
Absolutely.
We have several, we call missionaries that are here in the United States as well as overseas. But our missionaries are going to a cross-cultural and they're sharing the gospel. And that gospel can be different ways. There's many administrative roles that are happening to share the gospel.
Yeah.
And it takes
Bible translation, preaching, support roles, admin, all that kind of stuff.
Business is another big one that's happening right now too.
Yeah, yeah.
But missional, God's called us all to be missional. So how are we about reaching the global perspective? How are we about reaching the world? And so I may not be a missionary here at CrossPoints Church.
It may not be your title. Right. Okay.
But I should be being a part of missions.
But your function, we should all function as missionaries, if I could say that way. But we're going to be missional. In other words, we have the mindset that it's our responsibility to tell the gospel to those around us. Yeah.
And to be behind our missionaries.
Yes, okay, so that's another great point.
We are all part about what our missionaries are doing. I truly believe each one of us we're tied to our missionaries. And so the work that they're doing is a part of the work I'm doing. And that's then a responsibility for us. We talk about this every year. I've been doing it for 8 years. So we got to pray for our missionaries.
Yes.
Right? We support our missionaries. Right. We go in and care for our missionaries. So because what they're doing is just really a branch, an arm of the church.
Good. Yeah.
And so what they're doing, I'm investing into.
That's right.
They're sowing seeds that I'm investing into. And so that's part of the global perspective that we can have. And that's being missional for me.
That's so good. So good. So you're asking those, particularly at CrossPoints, but I don't care what church you go to. If you're a believer in Jesus, somehow we should be part and parcel of the missionaries that are connected to that local church. And for CrossPoints, we have over 40 missionaries or so that we support all over the world. And our role isn't to say, well, hey, you're doing a great job. Good job over there. No, our part is to say we're part of the process of making sure that they're supported, encouraged, prayed for, loved, all those kind of things. And that makes a big difference in what they're able to do on the field. Yeah.
Now, one big distinction that I try to make being missional, because we have lots of fantastic ministries in our country.
Yep, for sure.
And our ministries serve the local community. They serve the poor. They serve the needy. They serve all different aspects of a ministry. And there is a missional aspect to ministries that are happening. But missionary ministry is their focus is to share the gospel. They want to see people come to know Jesus. And that is their focus on everything that they do. They may do that through business. They may do that through education. They may do that through medical field.
But their end goal is to see people come to know Jesus.
That's the beginning goal and their end goal.
Okay, yes.
And so a lot of times I feel like we wrestle in the church. I wrestle here in the States of how to balance between supporting local ministries, which is so important. It's so needed, right? But also keeping the focus. And so I think the church over the years has done really good locally and done with ministries, and then we flow with missions. And that's my call. My champion as the missions pastor is to keep championing. We have to have the global perspective. We have to keep thinking about the lots who've never heard the name of Jesus before.
Absolutely.
Right?
I've seen this happen in church after church that I've connected with over the years, and that is that what tends to happen is that the local missions movement that's here in town is typically the loudest voice because they're the nearest to us. So as a result of that, all the money tends to get diverted. And over a period of time, what happens is that all the money now is residing here in the local industry, which is good and great. But if we lose that outside perspective, those that are serving on the front lines, that are serving in the 1040 window, that are serving out there in frontier missions, they don't have a loud voice because they kind of have to be underground sometimes. They're not always here to be able to say, here's my need.
So true.
And so you being the missions pastor, have to make sure that becomes the priority. So for sure.
Absolutely.
And I would say that to those of us out here that we can. So that's Mark's job, is to make sure that he's continually bringing before us missionaries that are serving overseas. He's their voice when they can't have a voice.
Absolutely.
And you're doing a great job. Okay. So which leads me into, you've been the missions pastor now for 8 years. which blows me away.
Seems like it's only been a few.
It seems like it's only been, and I was a mission pastor for 18 years. So you're knocking on the door. You're chasing after me. He's got this. Anyway, you've done an absolute incredible job, and I've told you this, but I'm going to say this to our audience. Mark has done an amazing job connecting with our missionaries and just absolutely taking our missions program to a whole nother level. You've done a great job. But my question for you is, you've been doing it 8 years. You've done a stunning job. Even in the midst of a pandemic, we're still, raising money for missionaries. We're supporting all of our missionaries. Where would you like to see, particularly CrossPoints, where would you like to see our program in the next 8 years?
Well, I just brought on an assistant. His name is Joel Holland.
Oh, Joel is awesome. We had him on the podcast last time.
He's a young man.
Yeah.
And he represents what I want to see. We have some amazing missionaries that have been on the field 20, 30, some of them 40 years on the mission field.
40 years as missionaries. This really, it's unprecedented. Most churches don't have that.
And we have a lot of young people that want to do missions, but it's usually a short-term thing. They want to go on a short-term trip. They want to go to a cool country.
Yeah.
But my passion, my desire in 8 years is that we would have some families, some 20s, some 30-year-olds, some people that want to take the call long-term to go on mission fields, to go to those places that need to hear the gospel. And that's what I want to see built. We want to see the next generation of our church, of people in our church that have that passion that God's given them, and they're willing to go. They're willing to take that risk and go.
It's so good. We want the next generation of Curtis and Maylin Jones.
Yes, we do.
Of Joe and Judy Portali. And these guys are awesome, and they're still on the field. But we want that next generation. It's so good. Yes, absolutely.
And so that's where I see it. That's where I brought Joel in so he can continue working. I'm getting a little bit older,
What?
So
He's almost 50, folks. Watch out.
It's still my favorite. I love taking the youth group on missions trips. And hopefully I don't ever age out of being able to do that. But again, that's one of the passions I focus on, is that we take a trip with the youth every year that we can.
Absolutely.
Because we want to stir that up. That's why I take as many missions trips as you let me go on.
I know.
Sometimes you tell me to keep going.
Exactly.
Sometimes you
slow down a little bit.
But I want to take as many people on a missions trip so they can see what God's doing. And so many times when we step foot on another place, in another country with another culture, God plants that seed in our heart.
That's right.
And He calls us to go.
Absolutely.
And so the more people I can take on a short-term trip, the more I'm hoping that we'll get that seed planted in their heart.
It's beautiful. And it also puts on the next generation a desire, even if they don't become missionaries, they become supporters of missionaries. And it changes their perspective as well. So I am 1,000% behind our youth, our college, our families, and even our more mature people out there. We want you on a missions trip. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. Our Mexico trip is the best one because we have young families, we have kids, we have youth, but we also have a lot of the older generation that go on that trip as well.
Yeah.
And they love it. And it helps us, again, we talked about global perspective. Going on a short-term trip gives you a greater global perspective of what's going on. Because we hear a lot in the news.
That's right.
But if you never travel to another country, there's so much you don't really understand.
Oh,
you go there and
so
meet
true.
the people, it just blows your mind of what God's doing in other countries.
Yeah, it's absolutely important. I would say this too to every single one of our listeners, no matter who you are, if you go to CrossPoints or not, you need to travel on a missions trip. I mean, like it's a goal for us as a church that every single member of CrossPoints Church goes on a missions trip because we believe it's that valuable. Absolutely. And it's not just so that we want to get your money, it's because we want you to have a world global perspective. Global kingdom perspective is kind of what we're talking about here today. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. There's a missions conference coming up, which we have every November, and we've been doing this for 40 years?
Probably.
Almost 40 years now. We've been doing this missions conference, and we've placed it the week before Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we do that is because we believe that at this time of Thanksgiving that the whole country is grateful because we're grateful to God for saving us, for the salvation that we've acquired through grace. We then want to be able to say we want to give back. We want to see other people experience the same thing we've experienced. So we've done that. We take up a big offering the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And so, sorry, I'm talking like a missions pastor. But go ahead, Mark. Tell us about the missions conference and what's happening.
Well, so this year's going to be a little bit different because we're right in the middle of COVID, so it's affecting everything.
So different.
But we support, I don't know if you know, it's 47 missionaries.
47! Look, I've been out of it too long. I had the wrong stat. Okay.
12 different countries around the world.
Okay.
Lots of different ministries, and so we have we're not a huge church.
No, we're a
good-sized church,
large church, but we're not a mega church.
We're passionate about supporting missionaries.
Love it.
And so we bring as many as we can back every year. And so we have 10, maybe 12. It all depends on travel and where people are coming from that are going to be here in the state and at our missions conference. And so on Thursday night, which is the date of Thursday, is November 19th. It's
November 19th.
We usually have events every night throughout the week, but we're only going to have one big event.
Right.
And it's going to be a storytelling night where the missionaries are going to tell stories. Tell stories.
Tell stories.
And we're also going to invite our missionaries that are around the world. We all love Zoom now, right? We may not love it, but we're experts at it. So we're going to be inviting our missionaries from around the world to join us through Zoom, and then we're going to put this. So you can either come to the church and hear the stories live, or you can hear it on Zoom. And so we're going to have a big.
That's great to have both of those. Yeah, to have both those options is really critical.
So we're going to hear stories of what God's doing, because a lot of times we lose perspective on what is God really doing. We hear all the negative about all the wars and this and that. Yeah. But God's doing things with our missionaries. And that's what I want our congregation to hear, those stories.
Man, that's going to be a great night. So November 19th, it's a Thursday, and they can either join online, they can be in person, and you're going to have all those different missionaries share stories.
Plus some from around the world on Zoom.
Let me tell you, over the years, we've had hundreds of people that have listened to these stories. Like, it's really kind of the highlight a lot of times of the whole week, just because people are like, I never knew. I never knew about Curtis May Lynn. I never knew about Joe and Judy Pertali. I never knew about all these crazy things that God's doing. So I encourage you as a lead pastor, please come. There's no reason why you can't come, especially this year, because you can join us online. It's super easy.
So, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's Thursday.
That's going to be our number one place for you to connect with our missionaries. We will on the 15th Sunday. We're going to have a big mission Sunday.
Okay, great.
One of our missionaries, Jim Kefauver, and Joel, my assistant, and myself will be sharing on missions.
Woo! They're going to be preaching, folks. There's going to be 3 of you, right?
3 of us.
And you guys are all going to give it to us. It's going to be great. Okay.
And then the following Sunday is the 22nd. We're going to have a guest speaker. Troy Sherman's going to be coming into town.
Now, people might remember Troy Sherman. They might remember the Sherman name. Why would they know the Sherman name?
Dean Sherman has been around for a long time. He spoke at Youth with the Mission. He's been one of the founders and pioneers of Youth with the Mission, which is what the missions organization I was part of for 20 years.
And so he also has spoken here 2 or 3 times.
I think we supported him close to 15, 20 years.
And we did support him as well. And he's an incredible guy, great speaker. So his son now is carrying on the legacy.
That's right.
Okay.
A little bit different.
Okay, tell me about that. What do you mean by a little bit different?
Well, I love Troy Sherman. Is the most awesome guy.
Okay.
And his father taught on relationships. He teaches a little bit different things, but thing I like to highlight about, he provokes people.
Oh, and watch out. Okay.
I love that he provokes people into action. He provokes people to say, hey, what's going on in this world? How can we make a difference?
Okay.
And
which kind of leads to your theme, right? He's provoking for a response.
Yep. Our theme this year is respond.
Okay.
And the scripture, can I read that?
Yeah. No, we got time.
It's Romans 10. So Romans 10 says, but how then they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him who have not heard? And how are they to hear someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they're sent?
Yes.
And so how are we sending? How are we going? That's the question. So how are we responding to the people who have not heard the gospel?
Yeah.
And so Troy's going to be not hitting us, but he's going to be challenging us.
In a good way.
In a great way. Yeah. And provoking us and giving us a good challenge of how are we going to respond to the need of people hearing the gospel.
I really like that. I like the fact that you're saying like he's gonna provoke us to get a response from us.
That's right.
And sometimes we get so comfortable. Mm-hmm. We've done the same thing year after year after year, and if we're not careful, we can get numb to those stories. We can get numb to the whole global perspective, and so hopefully he'll poke and prod us a little bit so that we'll have a better response.
We all get comfortable.
Oh man,
as the missions pastor,
absolutely.
I get so comfortable. I come back here. I have a wonderful house. I have a wonderful church. I have wonderful places to go, and I could be looking at my life here.
Yes.
But God's called me to have a global mindset, and so that's why I have to go. My DNA, I have to go on a mission trip to keep my mind set on what God's called us to go, and that's to go.
Yeah.
Right?
That's great. Well, I'm excited. You're also putting together another magazine that has really, like when we started, actually Jeff Colleen was the very first missions pastor, and he started it, and it was like a 2-page thing, and it just had a couple of pictures of some missionaries and a story in it, and that was it. And then when I did it, it was like maybe 5 or 6 pages, and now Mark has taken it, and now it's like a whole magazine. And it's 50 pages. So, but it's really amazing. You're trying to capture like stories and photos and really some teaching in there as well. And I just think it's great.
And it's really not me. I have a wonderful team of people that develop it over the years, and we have a wonderful lady that's heading it up this year to put the magazine together. But it is some amazing stories. So it's filled with stories from our missionaries and challenging, again, us to be active in responding to the gospel.
That's good.
And they're giving us different ways of how we can respond. So it's a great tool for us just to be challenged to see what's going on in the church.
That's good.
And we're going to mail them all out this year.
Okay.
So everybody from the church should be getting one. And if you don't get one, you can email me, ask me for one, or we'll also have them at church as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And I encourage you, it's not just something that you just kind of put beside your bed and it's got like their names and addresses of the missionaries that we support. There's actual content that we want you to read. So it'll be really good.
It's going to be a great one this year.
That's great. That's great. Okay, I tell you what, why don't you, we're going to take just a few minutes and we're going to take maybe a little diversion just for a second and get maybe a little bit more serious because you in your own personal life, for a lot of our viewers out there, they know you're going through some difficulty right now in your own family. And so I thought it might be good for you to share with people about what you're going through right now and maybe how we can pray for you guys as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, my wife was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer several months ago. So she is just had her 4th round of chemo.
Okay.
And so again, stage 4 is pretty serious. So it's kind of rocked our world. We're still pretty young.
I bet you guys were that was the last thing on your mind that you were thinking you would ever experience.
My wife has the same missions passion as I do. She's been the last couple of years studying Spanish because she wanted to work in the medical field with Hispanics that were here.
Look, she's already having that global perspective, right? Yeah.
And so right now, actually, she was supposed to be in Mexico in language school for 8 weeks because she's taken a bunch of classes, but because of the cancer, she wasn't able to go. Yeah. And so it's kind of rocked our world a little bit.
I'm sure it has.
But we are standing and believe in health. We're a church that believes in healing.
We do.
I believe in healing, and I trust the doctors too. So we're walking through what the doctors have.
So you're doing both. You're believing that God's going to heal, but we're also doing the medical route as well, for sure. And how has chemo been for Lori, and how have you guys been able to walk through that?
Well, being at part of the staff here has been awesome. We have wonderful people that check in on us and care for us, and Lori's got a good team around her too that are praying for her. We have a Caring Bridge account. Yeah,
we'll put a link in the description, but kind of share a little bit about the Caring Bridge and what that is, because some people don't know anything about that.
Caring Bridge is a simple portal that shares Lori's story and what's going on and gives updates, and there's I think over 900 people that have checked it out and been praying for Lori. And so we have a lot of people that are praying for her at this time.
Which I think is so good. It's another great thing about having a global perspective, a global kingdom perspective, is that, man, you guys have connected with people all over the world over the last 20, 30 years. And now you've got this whole group of people that's come around encouraging you, praying for you, loving Lori. And so, that's good. Yeah, well, anything else that we can do as a church to pray? Like if somebody out there was saying, how can I pray for Mark and Lori? What would be the one or two things that you would want them to be praying, to joining with you?
Well, I think through all this for Lori, many of you guys know, but we lived in Mexico every summer for about 10 years. We lived there and we had a good friend of ours who was a couple years younger than us that died of lupus. And she was just a good friend. They had a daughter at the same time as we had our son. So just really good friends.
You guys were in the same stage of life and all of that.
And through it all, she was the most life-giving person that I probably have ever met.
You mean in the midst of her like coming through her illness and then her death?
And through her death. A week before that she died, my wife and I went and visited her in Mexico, and we spent a couple nights on the beach. We didn't even know how painful and how much pain that she was in. Really? But she loved Jesus so much. It overflowed. The joy of the Lord overflowed in her everywhere that she went. And that's really Laura and I's heart, is that through this season, we're praying that God would heal us. Heal her.
Number one, praying for healing.
Praying for healing. But number two, that through it all, through the stories, through her engaging with people, through whatever, we want to know that we love Jesus and there's joy in Jesus through life and through death. right? Because our hope is not here in this world. Our hope is for eternity.
Yeah.
And we want to make a difference. We want to be joyful. We want to be life-giving. So that's a prayer for us, because that's not easy.
No.
It is not easy. And there's days where you want to give up. There's days you want to be angry with God, to be honest.
No, and this is real.
But we want to stand strong, and we want to be life-giving people through the season. So that's a real prayer request for us.
So one, healing, two, that you would have joy,
Yes.
and that joy would flow out of you. Not that you would just
Absolutely.
have it, but it would flow out of you. Is that right? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's really good. I wanted to pinpoint something that you just said, because it's easy for me to say it because my wife doesn't have cancer, and I'm not struggling with the possibility of death right now. But you just said we don't put our hope here on earth.
Right.
Like, that's not just something that you say, you're walking through that.
Yes, we are.
And you're saying whether Lori lives or dies, you want her life to be lived for the glory of God. And I think that's what Lori has said too, right?
Uh-huh. She has.
Yeah. Man, I just have to say, I just commend you guys, because it's not an easy thing to go through. And especially to share your story here, it's really powerful. And I think what I'm hoping for is that our church will do a couple things. One, that they will continue to rally around you and pray for you. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the most important thing. Yeah. But number two, that we would all recognize that our life here on earth really is shorter than what we think. Yeah. And that our ultimate goal is to have this global Christian perspective. Yep. That our whole reason for being here is so that we can bring other people with us into heaven. I mean, really, at the end of the day.
And our church has been so wonderful.
Yeah, tell me about this.
I come to church every Sunday, and people are asking about Lori. They bring her gifts. They write some great notes. So we've had people that we don't even know that are friends of people from the church that have written us notes. And so just the outpouring of love for Lori has been fantastic. We know that we have people that are around us. And so thank you for that. I appreciate that a lot.
That's so good. Wow, that's so good. Mark, let's end on a little bit lighter note.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you some questions.
All right.
These are just fun questions.
Here we go.
There's a whole bunch of them, but let's just walk through this. Okay. What is the farthest you have been from home? Missions pastor, it's a good question. What's the furthest you've been from home?
It's hard to know the furthest, but I think the furthest, because in the last 8 years, I've traveled to 17 different countries, and many of those countries multiple times, all for the church, visiting our missionaries, short-term trips.
Okay.
But I think the farthest is probably Australia.
Oh,
it's pretty much on the opposite side of the world.
I don't think you can get much further than that.
The highest.
Okay, the highest, yes.
Nepal. And Nepal was an incredible mission trip.
It was pretty amazing.
It was the most rugged mission trip I've ever taken.
Do you know what level is? What the altitude was that you were there?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
We were living in the clouds.
You were living in the clouds. Okay,
that's where we were.
That counts. He was living in the clouds.
The clouds never left us.
Okay. What is one of your favorite TV shows?
TV
I know
shows.
TV show or Netflix shows. We can put that in there as well.
I probably watched a lot of Netflix shows.
Okay.
And there's some good ones, bad ones, but I think overall I am a sci-fi guy.
Yeah, I love sci-fi.
So I love Star Trek.
Okay, so Star Trek. Like old school Star Trek? Or
every school Star Trek.
There's like 50 of them.
My favorite is Jean-Luc Picard.
Yes, the next generation.
The next generation.
Okay.
But I'll watch them all now. Okay. So anything that's sci-fi, I'm in. So
I love it. Yeah. Okay, what's your favorite movie of the last couple of years?
Well, I don't know. There hasn't been awesome movies to me the last few years.
Okay.
But what Lori and I have been doing, because we've been home quite a bit, we're going watching the old stuff. So we just finished Lord of the Rings, watched all of them. They're my favorite of all time.
Yes. Okay, Lord of the Rings, that's like up here. Okay.
So we were going through, we watched all of the James Bond movies, old school ones, new ones.
Okay, I'm doing that with my boys right now. Yep. We're going through the Daniel Craig series.
Yeah, watch the Hunger Games. So just anything that's got a series, we're kind of going back through and watching. That's kind of what we've been filling our time with.
I love it. Okay. Let me ask you this. If you could make a documentary about anything, what would it be? Now, he hasn't seen these questions, so I'm putting him right on the spot. If you could make a documentary about anything, what would it be?
I think a fun documentary, it would have to be a travel one.
Yeah, of course.
And again, we have so many wonderful travel documentaries, but again, a lot of times they're not showing the real people. They're not seeing the beauty of some of these countries. I've been to so many countries where the beauty is just incredible.
Yeah.
And I come home all the time with pictures of mountains and trees, and my wife's like, I want people in these pictures. Can you please take a picture of people? And I like the country and the architecture, and so that's probably what I would make a documentary.
Okay. What's something that always makes you laugh?
Makes me laugh.
I know. What's something that always makes you laugh?
Okay, this is probably a negative side about
it.
That's okay.
So
when people don't really get hurt, but they kind of get hurt. Makes me. My wife and my daughter are the same way. And so whenever I stub my toe at home and they fall on the ground laughing. But I'm very similar to that.
So you love those YouTube videos with those guys who are always falling.
Absolutely. They do the stupidest things to themselves, and sometimes they hurt. It's kind of funny.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What's the first thing you notice about someone when you meet them?
Ooh. Well, I think the life-giving aspect that they give, their personality, and how much they engage.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the interior what I probably notice most.
Okay.
If they're true and genuine.
Yeah.
I really like to engage with true and genuine
authentic people. Yeah.
When it comes to outer, I always notice people's shoes.
Their shoes. Okay, it goes right for the shoes.
I know the people in the church that have good shoes. I don't notice the bad shoes.
Okay, but you do notice that you got it.
Okay. So I don't know. That's a weird quirk about it.
I will say this. Anytime I have a new pair of shoes, Mark is the first to always
David's
notice.
Got some new pair.
Yep. Okay, who's your favorite superhero?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know who if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Captain America.
Captain America, lots of people. Okay, all right. Who's your favorite late night host? You ever watch the late night shows?
That's current.
That's current.
I don't watch a lot of them now, but probably Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon. I think Jimmy is the guy.
He's funny. He sings. He does a little bit of everything. It's pretty funny. I like him a lot.
All right, give me 3 words. We're going to end it with this. 3 words that are going to describe your life right now.
Right now. Well, hopefully 3 words are servant.
Okay, servant.
I believe God called us all to serve, and that's what we're supposed to do.
You're an amazing servant. I'm going to say that. Yeah.
Missions.
Yeah.
Come on. Missions.
It's your life. Yeah.
And the 3rd word, I don't know. That's a great one. I'd hope to be caring.
Ooh, that's good. That's good.
Because, again, that goes with serving. I want to be a person that cares for people, and I want to challenge people to care for other people. Yeah. I love for people.
Yeah, I think you do an incredible job at that. I really do. I'm just going to say that. You do a great job at that. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Mark, you did an incredible job.
Thank you.
Yes, so good. Thank you for joining us today. Hey, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Make sure you like us. And forward this on to someone that might need to hear it. We're so glad that you joined us today. We'll see you next week.